Hey guys, we're going to talk today about white mages, when to use cleric stance, when to heal, and just a general outlook of the class and all of its abilities. And we're not going to speak too much in detail of any one ability because you do have access to your class and to read your abilities. And this is going to be directed more at level 60, and you just kind of direct a little bit down and kind of adjust your focus if you're not quite level 60. Uh, Basically, all your healing prior to 60 is pretty much cure and cure 2 with regen, and then you're good to go. This is going to touch more on your higher level healing. So let's just jump into it. And first off, we have cure and Medica. Those are your first abilities. You get them. You get cure at level 2, Medica at level 10. You know, you just spam cure if somebody has taken damage. Simple, straightforward. Medica if your entire team is taking damage. Not really much more to it. Pretty low cost of mana. You can't spam Medica. That'll just be horrible on your mana, and then you'll go out of mana, and that'll be bad. Just basically, you're going to be just curing for the most part. Not everybody takes a whole lot of damage, especially on this lower level content. People don't tend to take a whole lot of damage. It's not really that awful hard to just cure, and you'll be good to go. When you hit level 30, that's when you're going to get the ability Cure 2. Cure 2, a lot of people make the mistake of spamming Cure 2 in situations where a regular Cure 1 would more than suffice. Because at level 32, you get a trait called Free Cure. That turns your cures into the chance of having your Cure 2 cost no mana. And when you get that free cure proc, you can pretty much just use cure 2 however you see fit. I mean, you want to make sure you use the proc, so that's why you just want to spam your cure 1s. That way you get those free cure 2s. You can just cast them on whatever. If somebody's taking a little extra damage, hey, you get a free cure proc, so you go and use that then. So that's basically how you want to heal. There are going to be times where you're going to have to use cure 2 because somebody takes a little bit more damage, or you're afraid that they might die. Use it. Your first priority is to make sure people stay alive, but for the most part, and I've been healing for a long time now, and for the most part, a regular cure 1 will suffice in almost all situations. That's somebody that you need to heal one target. Then at level 35, that's when we get our regen. Again, let's just go over the mistakes a lot of people use, and that's that they put regen on multiple targets that take damage. You do not want to put your regen on multiple targets. You want to put it on one target. There is exceptions to the rules, I know, but you really want to just put that on just the tank, and just the tank that is taking the most damage. So if you're in an alliance or whatever, and your tank is not tanking, another alliance tank is tanking, target the boss or something, or target that person, and then just keep them regen or whatever, because they're the only people that are going to be taking the damage. They're the ones that are not going to waste your regen proc. So moving on from that, just again, regen just mainly the tank. There are exceptions, but just focus on just keeping it up on whoever's tanking the boss. Moving on from that, we have our Cure 3 and Medica 2. Cure 3 is a basically very specific spell. You don't really want to cast this spell that awful much, but it's got its niches where if you're all stacked up, you're all about to take a hit, maybe a Cure 3 will work, but a lot of times the potency is so strong that a lot of times it's wasted to where a normal Medica and Medica 2 combo would work. So it's mana efficient if you have an overcure proc, and you get those overcure procs from a Cure 2. So sometimes you can get a free cure proc and then into an overcure proc, and then you can maybe use it. I've been doing it a lot more lately. I've been casting it, especially in raids or whatever. Anytime I get the overcure proc, I usually just look for somebody to heal with it, because it only costs like 800 mana or something. So you can do it that way. But if you never cast Cure 3, you'll be fine. So if you're struggling and you're struggling with mana especially, just take Cure 3 off and see how you do with just using more Cure 1s and Medicas. And then moving on to Medica, we're talking about that. Let's go over and talk to Medica 2. Medica 2 is a strong ability if you basically use it like a shield, how you would use a shield, and that's you would put it on before your team takes damage. I know it has a cure potency of 200 when you use it, and you know it's got that initial 200 heal, but honestly Medica 2 is mainly used for the cure potency on the regen on it. That basically gives like a little bit of tick on everybody that just take a little bit of healing. How I use it is I use it pretty much always on an like trial or raid environment, anywhere with you where you have a full party of 8 people. That's when you want to use your Medica 2. I don't think it's that useful in a party of 4 people. I don't think it's that useful, so I don't really cast it in that. But if I'm in a full party of 8, I pretty much just use it on cooldown 30 seconds. Every 30 seconds I cast it, just to give that little bit of a buffer. If somebody takes damage, it's not a big deal because they will be cured back up with the Medica 2 procs. And then moving on from that, that's basically it. Remember, just Cure 2, those are your go-to abilities. Regen on the tanks. Medica and Medica 2, use them however you think that they might be needed. Like Medica 2, again, before you take damage. Medica, after you take damage. And then we'll jump into the level 50 through 60 abilities. There's not a whole lot you get between 50 to 60 to help out with your healing. You have Asylum. How you want to use that is you just want to put it on the ground under the tank. I understand it's an AoE healing ability, but for the most part, your Medica 2s and your Medicas will do most of your group healing. So you want to make sure that the person who's going to be taking the most damage has that Asylum, which is basically like an AoE hot, always ticking under the tank the person's going to be taking the damage. And then you want to put it underneath of them, almost try to square almost up directly underneath of them, or maybe a little bit behind them, so that way they have the freedom to move around. You don't want to put it where they couldn't move backwards if they needed to, or they couldn't move around out of a circle or whatever. So let's just say, I'm going to show you really quick. Let's say I'm tanking this right here is the boss. If I'm going to sit there and put this on the tank, I'll either put it in a way that right on top of the tank, that way they can freely walk around back here, or I'll put it right behind the tank. So put it like right here, and that way they'll be able to take a step back, take a step over here, they could be able to avoid cones, everything they have to do while facing the boss. Most people put it like over here or something where the tank would not be able to move. Like as soon as he moves, he'll be out of the circle. You don't want to do that. Don't make that a habit. I understand it's an AoE heal, but don't use it like an AoE heal. Use it smart, like make sure you get the most out of it and put it under the tank, because I know it's, what is this potency? I think it's 100 potency, so just drop it under the tank or whatever. There are exceptions. Again, there's always going to be an exception to almost every rule, and that's basically if you know better. Like if you know something's going to be coming and you know you need a little extra healing, sure, Asylum, put the little AoE heal down for the whole party. But for the most part, I just use it on cooldown, drop it under the tank, and then it's a use and forget kind of ability. Then next, that brings us over to the level 56 spell, and that's Assize. Assize is a very strong heal, potency of 300, bursts, heals, everything on an AoE group. I basically just use this on cooldown. Anytime I would be using Medica or whatever, I just use Assize first, because it does two things. It's a great burst heal, and it also restores a little bit of your mana, so that allows you to use more Cure 2s, more Medicas, everything. So just probably use it on cooldown. Use that before you'd use anything else, unless, again, if you know better, just use it on cooldown. And that brings it over to Tetragrammaton, I think is what it's called. There's a 700 potency cure that costs no mana. use it basically anytime somebody's at like half health or so. Don't save it. Don't save it for like, okay, well this person might take big damage here. Don't save it. Use it every 60 seconds, as soon as you can. It's great mana regen and stuff like that. It's really good to use on a tank, like when you have to take your focus out from healing the tank for a second. Let's say you're using cures on your DPS or whatever for a second. Kind of takes you out of that, and then you could switch over and use a Tetra on the tank when they drop down to half health or so. And then that's how you kind of use that ability. And I didn't really talk about Benediction yet because it's got such a long cooldown that it's just one of those oh shit buttons. You know, something happens, maybe you get petrified or something, and the tank drops down to 5% health. Benediction just to make sure they stay alive. So that's kind of how that one right there works. And we'll talk quickly about the buffs that you get as a healer. We have Asuna. Your job isn't only to heal, it's also to remove debuffs. So if you know that somebody gets a debuff, a poison or something, Asuna that off. You have Shroud of Saints. This right here, you basically just use it on cooldown. Anytime you drop down to like 80% or so mana, use Shroud of Saints, because by the time you need it again, it'll be off cooldown. A lot of people make the mistake of using Shroud of Saints when they're down to 30% mana. So they'll sit there and they'll hold it that entire time, between 80% all the way down to 30%. They never use their Shroud. Why? Like you're still going to get the same mana regen as if you were at 80%, as if you were 30%. So you're literally just hurting yourself if you save it. So just use it when you're down to the 70, 80% or so mana, and then use it again as soon as it comes off cooldown, because chances are you're going to be at lower mana than where you were before. So just use it at about 70%, and then just from then on, every 2 minutes, use it again. Now we'll talk about Presence of Mind. This ability right here just reduces your recast times, increases your spell speed, everything by 20%. Just use it when you need a boost to healing, and then there you go. Anytime like you know there's gonna be a lot of healing needed or whatever, cast it, use it. And the same thing for Divine Seal. 30% increase to spell-based HP restoration. 60-second cooldown. Just use it whenever you need a boost. But I will say one thing: it's very important not to do. Don't ever use Presence of Mind and Divine Seal both. There will never be a time where you need both of these abilities up at the same time. There will never be a time. You need to make sure that you can then, use this 15-second duration, then use this 15-second duration. If you use them both at the same time, you do a lot of healing, but just because you're doing more healing doesn't really necessarily mean you're doing more healing, if that makes any sense, because there is a cap to how much you can heal for. So make sure you keep these here spread out. If you have Divine Seal on, use it, and then use Presence of Mind, or vice versa. And that pretty much does it for the healing. There's also one thing to really talk about here, and that's Stoneskin. Use it before a fight, but once you're in a fight, never cast Stoneskin. It is less useful, it has less healing potency than even a cure, and it costs more mana. So it is never a good idea to ever use Stoneskin unless it's before a fight. Just don't make the habit of doing that. Like I see a lot of people using Stoneskin. Never a good idea. I almost never even cast Stoneskin anymore. That's how bad it is, because it gives you a 10% reduction for like 5 seconds and then it's gone. So it's like one of those things where I don't even really rely on it anymore, but you can use it. And then I think that's pretty much it for your healing. So now this is where we're going to talk about Cleric Stance. And Cleric Stance switches you from a healer to a damage dealer. And it's so important. Don't be that healer that doesn't ever switch to doing damage. You have Cleric for a reason. If you're ever in a situation where nobody needs healing, or they're taking really low damage, switch over to Cleric stance. It is very important, because you're literally just wasting your time and you're just taking up space if you are at full health and you're not using it. So basically how you want to use it, you have somebody healed up to full, you have regen on them, on the tank or something, switch over to Cleric stance, throw your arrow and your arrow 2 up on the enemies, and there you go. If you just do that, just keep arrow 2 arrow up on the enemy at all times, you're doing a pretty good job. You're doing something. You're not just wasting your time. That'll contribute to some. If you want to talk about other stuff, if you want to do a little bit more damage, Stone 2 and Stone 3 are your options. Stone 1 is only used up until level 22 when you get Stone 2. Then after that right there, you have 2 options. You have Stone 2 and Stone 3. Stone 3 you get at level 54 if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 54 you get Stone 3. How you want to judge using these right here is how much mana you have. If you have plenty of mana, Stone 3, sure, why not? But if you're struggling on mana, just use Stone 2. They don't have that much of a potency difference that you really need to use Stone 3. So let's kind of judge how much mana you have and then use either Stone 2 or Stone 3. Brings us to our other ability, Arrow 3 and Holy. That's how you do your AoE damage as a white mage. Arrow 3 and Holy. Arrow 3, that's your first ability you want to use. Put Arrow 3 up on all enemies. I also use Arrow 3 when I'm doing single target. I'll do Arrow 3, Arrow 2, and Arrow all up on the enemy, and then use the switch back over to my healing or whatever, and then just reapply my dots. And I do plenty of damage doing that right there as I'm contributing. So Arrow 3, and then you have Holy. Where is Holy? Oh, here it is. Holy at level 45. Holy costs so much mana. It's good to cast maybe once or twice if the group is massive. If there's a big AoE pool, cast it a couple times, but you're going to notice it. Your mana is going to drop down super fast. And your only other AoE ability is a size. It does a lot of damage though. A size is really strong. But if you're in a healing environment, if you're healing a raid or something, you almost never use a size to do damage. But if you're in a party, sure, cast a size and, you know, have fun doing a lot of burst DPS. But that's basically, to sum up Cleric stance. Use Cleric stance when you're not healing. If you're actively standing still for a second, switch over to Cleric stance and actually do something. It's very important, because if you're not playing your class to its potential, you expect the DPS to do their potential, you expect the tank to do theirs, so why, as a healer, are you not expected to do yours? I know a lot of people have that notion to where I'm a healer, I'm healing, but don't play it like that. Play smart and play your class to its potential and use Cleric stance. And again, once you're in Cleric stance, your main priority, just get your dots up, Arrow 1, Arrow 2, and Arrow 3. And if they're still haven't, you know, if your team's still doing good, then just fill up the filter with your filler with using Stone 2 or Stone 3 based on how much mana you have. But that's basically it for the White Mage guide. This is just a quick guide just to kind of go over some of the abilities, when to use them and when not to use them, and some of the mistakes that people use or people make or whatever as a White Mage. And here in a little while, probably tonight, I'm going to make a video actually running through a content as a white mage, and that'll help out a little bit more. I know right now I'm just kind of standing here just kind of talking about the abilities, but yeah, later on I'll make an actual ability or actual video going over my mindset as I'm healing and what I'm doing, what I'm casting and stuff. So stay looking up for that video right there, and until then, good luck healing.